Well, folks, I tried. I really did. I managed to squeeze out some genuine empathy for Orangina, and I thought I did a pretty good job. And then I made the mistake of looking at Elon's ex, and I remembered why the right is not compatible with empathy. And then I remembered Paul Pelosi getting hit over the head with a hammer and mocked by Schlumper and Company. I remembered the image of bound, gagged, and hog-tied Joe Biden that Schlumper tweeted to the world. I remembered the assassination threats against Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and how 1 in 6 election officials have experienced threats because of their job, ranging from death threats that named officials young children to racist and gendered harassment by the right. I remembered MTG calling for the execution of Barack Obama, and Paul Gosar posting an animated video depicting him unaliving AOC. I remembered the far-right's violence against minority communities in Charleston, Pittsburgh, El Paso, Buffalo, Jacksonville, etc., etc., etc. I remembered Trump calling for people at his rallies to be harmed, and how he wanted to shoot protesters in the legs. And of course, I remembered January 6th, and how all our lawmakers' lives were in grave danger, and our Capitol police were pummeled and traumatized for Trump's adrenaline rush of vengeance for a country that kicked him to the curb. I remembered E. Jean and dozens of women who faced violence at Trump's own hands. And then I caught wind of J.D. Vance and all the wannabe up Trump's ass peanut gallery, who waited about 2.5 seconds before claiming that Joe Biden's campaign rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. And Representative Mike Collins going one step further, claiming Biden sent the orders. I remembered lock her up and knock the crap out of them, and good people on both sides, and when the looting starts, the shooting starts, and stand back and stand by. And I remembered that between 2013 and 2022, 75% of murders committed by extremists were caused by right-wing extremists, with only 4% caused by left-wing extremists. Of course, I don't advocate, celebrate, or condone violence. That's what the other side does. But I draw the line at feeling compassion for a man who we all know would be making a joke about the shooter having poor aim if this had happened to Joe Biden. I'm not going to go down the road with all the conspiracy theorists, although I find it baffling that his security team is so incompetent. And for the life of me, I don't understand how a man who was just shot at was able to stick his head above the Secret Service human shield that was huddled around him right after the shooting, so he could fist pump the air and encourage his voters to fight. You'd think the folks who are supposed to be experts at protecting the president's noggin would have been a little uncomfortable with giving the shooter a second chance at blowing it to smithereens. Folks, I think we all know what's in store for us. We're going to see the biggest misuse of martyrdom there ever was. We're going to see mediocre men marinating in victimhood, tossing out thinly veiled calls for retribution and dog whistle after dog whistle for MAGA minions to avenge the radical left. Joe Biden will be painted as a cunning force of evil, at least when he can remember where he is and when to take his Alzheimer's meds. It's gonna be torture. Absolute frickin' torture. And instead of talking about the corroborated testimony of young girls who were allegedly violated at the hands of the depraved sociopath who happens to be the Republican nominee, we're going to hear about a cult leader victim who bravely gave the tip of his ear to save racism everywhere. Yeah. Well, all I can say is I'm going to be sure to remember all the folks who feared for their safety because of Orangina Pervilicious Thelonious Schlumper McPhee's thin-skinned rhetoric over the years. And I'm going to remind the bad actors that malevolent men don't get to turn victimhood into victory.